That's
Jimmy
a pretty good start.
Pretty good start, at least for the Pokemon. We don't know what's in his hand yet, but
yeah. And not only that, he will be going second, so actually he will be able to attack on his first turn if he's able to find an energy, which he's got right there in his hand. But it looks like Pedro will be going first. So and actually just plays a Guzma and oh my goodness.
This hand does not look good for Pedro here. 3 double colorless energy.
Oh man,
no Zorua, and then just Riolu.
That is terrible. There's no other way of phrasing that.
Jimmy drawing Brooklet Hill, such a great utility card in this deck, especially when you don't have access to an ability like Trade, like Pedro does. Brooklet Hill really lets you set up and get your Pokemon.
Yeah, it's one of these really great consistency cards which makes the Buzzroll Lycanroc deck so strong. And not only does it mean that you're more consistent, but it's a way of setting up without having to use something like Bridget. So this Buzzroll Lycanroc deck is probably one of the main, if not the main top tier deck, which doesn't have to use that card to set up, which means that it can dedicate its supporter every single turn to something like an N or a Sycamore or a Guzma to draw more cards or to really disrupt the opponent more.
It's looking like he's eyeing that second Remoraid. Remember, he does have a few options. Regirock EX, one of them too. Card that really just sees fringe play, but really helps out the math with this deck too.
Yeah, definitely, considering that I believe that Riolu has 70 HP, so getting one Regirock in means that you only need to do 2 Jet Punches instead of 3 to actually knock it out.
Yeah, of course, you always have to worry about that Tankerous Beatdown GX from Lucario.
Yes, you do. It's, of course, it does 30 damage times the amount of damage counters on itself. And, that's a Guzma from Jimmy. So just using that just to get the switch into the Buzzwole and then just a Jet Punch.
Yeah, so Jimmy's play I love here just because he has the Ultra Ball in hand. He gets that second Remoraid, so even if one's knocked out, he's still going to get an Octillery next turn for the full 5 of his hand.
Yeah, and then he uses Brooklet Hill next turn to get the Red Rock and pick up the 2-hit KO. Now, importantly, from Pedro's side, he actually drew an Ultra Ball for his turn, so he has been bailed out here, and he will be able to start getting himself set up. I imagine he's going to find himself a Tapu Lele and he's going to have to get a draw supporter because getting a Bridget won't really be quick enough here at this point. He's too far behind.
Yeah, so usually you're like, well, I need to set up Pokemon. I need these Zoruas in play so I can get Zoroarks out, but when your hand is just a double colorless, you really can't afford to try to set up. You need to just naturally draw all your Pokemon.
Yeah, exactly, because what if he Bridgets and then just ends up drawing nothing again? All that's going to happen is that Zora's going to get KO'd and he's going to be very sad. So he needs to absolutely get himself a draw supporter of some kind. The Sycamore is there available to him.
Oh, okay. I was like, where's the Cynthia? Because you don't really... In Pedro's shoes, you don't really want to end your opponent because he just played a Brooklet Hill and then attacked.
Yeah, so you'd much rather get Cynthia, and of course he doesn't want to get the Sycamore because then he would be discarding another double colorless energy, which he really doesn't want to do.
And there we go, Cynthia drawing 6 brand new cards. Pedro has now drawn out of his really bad hand.
Yeah, he really has. And, I mean, Pedro could still have an okay turn here. If he finds himself with Lucario GX, just evolves the active, attaches a strong energy, he can do 140 damage, which is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, and it's actually enough with the 50 next turn to take a knockout if he chooses to.
Indeed. And actually, it looks like...
Oh, double Zorua. Who needs Bridget?
Who needs Bridget, indeed.
But I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, no attack, but at least he was able to find his extra Pokemon while still drawing more cards. So, yeah, absolutely bailed out a little bit there. I'm sure Pedro will be breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief.
Double colors coming down on the Tapu Lele. You would think it's a really good attacker against Buzzwole because it's psychic. It's going to deal more damage, but it actually does not do weakness with its energy drive attack.
No, indeed. The energy drive ignores both weakness and resistance, which can be a benefit because, of course, we do know that Zoroark, for example, is resistant to psychic, so if Tapu Lele attacks it, it actually will do 20 more than other psychic attackers would, but it also means that you can't hit Buzzwole for weakness and knock it out easily.
All right, and so Jimmy straight away Ultra Balls for that Octillery, and then now you see him just skipping a few steps, using that Brooklet Hill.
Yeah, just this is something that...
Or maybe seeing what he...
Yeah, it does, yeah. This is something that a lot of players end up doing just because, if you're in the deck anyway, just save like a couple of seconds. It doesn't mean that you skip over actions which are so important which you confuse your opponent, but, you just do things one in a row and save having to, shuffle multiple times, I guess.
And looking at their records as well, Jimmy is sitting at 21 match points while Pedro is actually at 22.
Yeah, it looks like it. So that's going to be It's going to be interesting to see how that pans out, because that means that a win for Jimmy kind of...
Oh, wait, no. Jimmy's actually at 23, sorry. The two ties.
Yes. So
Math.
Math again. So...
Wow, another Octillery. And he's going to be able to just dump all the cards in his hand and draw, I think, 4 again?
Wow, that's really, really good draw of that Abyssal hand. I won't be able to dump his entire hand, though, because I believe he's already... Well, he attached 1 energy. And... Has he?
No, the energy last turn, so he can still attach 1.
Yeah.
And then...
But yeah, he has 2 in his hand. So... Wait, is he using Brooklet Hill again?
No, so I think he was checking to see if he had the Buzzwole in the deck kind of thing.
To do Brooklet Hill. Okay, that makes more sense.
Because then if you draw the Buzzwole, then you can get the Regirock or stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. So there is a Max Elixir from Jimmy. Does he actually hit it? He does. And that's going to go onto the Rockruff. Of course, Rockruff, very important to get powered up as well. It does have that really strong, dangerous Rogue GX attack, which kind of punishes any deck which uses the full bench, which is pretty much every single deck.
Speaking of, Pedro does have a full bench.
So that Dangerous Rogue will be doing 250 damage at this point, and that's something that Pedro's going to need to be aware of no matter what he brings up.
All right, second Octillery coming down. Choice Band on the Buzzwole on the bench with a strong energy to the active, meaning Jet Punch will take a knockout this turn if he chooses.
And looks like after that, he just will be following up with a Cynthia.
He's drawn so much cards this turn.
He has. This is the power of Octillery. I mean, 1 is good enough just to be able to top up your hand to 5 cards. When you've got 2, you can just top up your hand like he did there, play all the cards, and then do it again. It's a really, really strong card.
And the full 6 from Cynthia. I think I see a Lycanroc as well.
Yes, yes, we do. And a couple of choice bands to boot as well. He's probably going to hold off on attaching those just yet. He doesn't get any value out of them right now, but he has got a Float Stone. Might consider preemptively attaching that to something just so he has a pivot to work off of for Guzma.
It's looking like he is choosing to use Bloodthirsty Eyes, bringing up Azora. Remember, these were played last turn, so he's really kind of struggling to find those, and if they're getting knocked out right now, he's going to really be on the back foot this game.
Yeah, absolutely, because it means less Zoras means less Zoroarks, and less Zoroarks mean less trades. He's was really struggling to get them out, given that he had that really mega slow start, and Jimmy's been able to kind of capitalize on this, of course, using that Bloodthirsty Ice to bring up one of the Zoras and knock it out because of that fighting weakness. Oh,
but Pedro did draw a Zoroark GX for the turn. He also has that Evo Soda.
So he will be able to get out a Lucario and a Zoroark. I think he would ideally like to get another Zoro too, just so that next turn he can maybe get another Zoroark down. But he's going to use Brooklet Hill first just to see what's actually available to him.
Which, again, I think is probably the most important thing if you're a competitive player, is just using all the resources available to you. And that's one thing I think everyone should work on, is if my opponent has a Brooklet Hill in play, I should use it almost every turn.
Yeah, of course. Because why wouldn't you? It's something that's there for you to, even if the only advantage you gain out of it is being able to see what's in your deck and know what's priced or not, or remind yourself. That's still information that you wouldn't have otherwise. And if it's there available for you to use, then not using it is just passing up an opportunity.
Exactly. And there we see the N from Pedro. But again, Jimmy, even though he took a prize, he's only going to draw 5. He has 2 Octillery in play.
That's the other thing about Octillery. It just makes you so end-proof. Like, again, 1 is good enough, but 2, and then 1 just doesn't even matter at this point when it goes into the late stages of the game.
Oh, there we see the Mew EX, probably the best card in this matchup.
Yes, so very, very important, of course, with that versatile ability. Mew is able to copy the attacks of any Pokemon on either side of the field. So with that, he can use it to copy the Writer's Beating, and then, of course, being Psychic, it will be hitting the Buzzwole for weakness and be able to knock it out in 1 hit. A very, very important find.
Yeah, but looking at his hand, I don't think I see a double colorless energy.
Oh.
Because remember, he started the 3. There's 1 on the Riolu on the bench, and then 1 on the active Tapu Lele. He discarded 1 as well. So yeah, he opts not even to bench it and using that Tapu Lele Wonder Tag to get an N for next turn.
Yeah, perhaps deciding that's the best line of play to take for now. Just really maybe making Jimmy feel a little bit safer, given that he'll now be thinking Pedro has a full bench, so he can't really bench the Mew at this point. So I feel more content in maybe putting free energy on a Buzzwole, at which point Pedro could then come in with the Mew and knock it out.
Oh, but the Enhanced Hammer here taking out the strong energy. meaning he's still a little far away from getting that absorption or knuckle impact.
Yeah, that's a really good find for Pedro as well. And we're just going to see an energy drive after that, putting 60 damage onto the Buzzwole, and then it's going to be back on Jimmy.
The one awkward thing about Enhanced Hammer is it does lower your damage output with energy drive.
Yeah, it's a trade-off you have to make. I think it's definitely worth it, though, considering, like you just said, Jeremy, if he had the energy on there, then he only needs to attach one energy manually, and he's going to be able to do knuckle impact or absorption, and that's not something that Pedro wants to have done to him right now.
But it looks like Jimmy's probably going what I think is the safest route here. Floatstone on the active, and then probably retreating to the Lycanroc GX and using Dangerous Rogue to take the knockout.
Yeah, of course, as we mentioned before, we'll be doing 250 damage currently, so definitely enough to knock out the Tapu Lele GX, and that will put him 2 prizes closer to winning this game.
Brooklet Hill, but he fails to get anything, kind of saving that bench spot for maybe a Tapu Lele in the future.
Yeah, because he's going to want to close out this game by just doing a couple of Guzmas for the last 3 prizes. And
or even the Mew, which is, I think we were talking about this before yesterday, where Mew EX and like Mewtwo are the counters for Buzzwole. Well, Mew's the counter to those.
Yes, absolutely. Of course, it has a similar ability to Mew EX, but it's a little bit more restrictive. It can only copy the attacks of basic Pokemon on your side of the field. So it's still obviously a very strong attacker, and with that psychic typing, of course, it's able to hit opposing Mew EXs and Mewtwo's for weakness and deal with them, and only gives up 1 prize as well, which is an asset to Jimmy.
Yeah, and being able to just use that Jet Punch from the Buzzwole and adding the 30 damage to bench Pokemon as well while taking out the threat.
Yeah, it's really, really, really strong.
All right, it looks like he did play an N here.
Indeed, he has. Now, again, this N won't be too bad from Pedro's perspective, given that he's going to be getting a full complement of 6 cards. And Jimmy will be getting 5, but as we've mentioned so many times already, the Abyssal Hand will be able to come in and top up his hand quite nicely.
All right, so this N actually worked out pretty well for Pedro. It looks like he has double Puzzle of Time in hand.
Ooh,
so
yes, he does.
He'll be able to get back that double colorless he discarded earlier, and maybe even try to find a way to get a few knockouts.
Yeah, that's going to be a really, really important find from Pedro's side. We did see a Max Elixir actually going down from Jimmy, but was that... yeah, that was a hit.
To the
yeah, so that was a hit for him. There's another Floatstone as well going onto one of the bench artilleries, and then we just see an Abyssal Hand for 2.
Yeah, with this Buzzwole Lycanroc deck, its one weakness, I would say, is not getting a diverse amount of energies in play.
Yeah, absolutely, because what can happen is you maybe get one Buzzwole charged up, that gets knocked out, and then all of a sudden, how do you get the second and the third one powered up enough to see you do through those last 3 prizes or 4th prizes to finish the game?
Yeah, but right now, looking at Jimmy, he has that.
Yeah, he does, because he's been able to spread out his energy effectively enough to make sure that doesn't end up being a liability. Now, it looks like Pedro's actually opted just to bench another Zora, so again, no Mew threat coming from his side, although given that there's a Lycanroc in the active, Mew wouldn't be the best thing to go for right now regardless.
Yeah, unfortunately, Mew is not a grass-type Pokemon.
No, it's not. So, and even if he were to put it down, then of course we can't forget that Jimmy's own Mew, non-EX on the bench, will just be able to come right in and KO it in return.
Jimmy kind of just taking over this game. 3 prizes to Pedro's 6, and so far as it looks this turn, it doesn't look like he's going to be able to take a knockout.
No, it's a very, very unfortunate situation for Pedro. His deck not really cooperating with the way he does, as we've already mentioned, have that 2 double puzzle of time, and it looks like he's going to get back 1 puzzle and a double colorless.
All right, this is one of the great utilities about Puzzle of Time is if you have to discard 1 early on, or if you play it to look at your top 3, you can still get it back with another puzzle, and then later on use the 4th puzzle in your deck and still kind of get some sort of advantage going.
Yeah, exactly, and it means that you can still get more use out of it than you might be able to otherwise. Looks like just to be an energy drive from Pedro, so it's going to be 80 damage, but again, not really what he wants to be doing right now. He's falling behind, and his tempo of attack is still much, much behind what Jimmy's able to unleash.
Yeah, and we actually see Jimmy drawing another Max Elixir, And with multiple basic energy in those top 6, this Buzzwole's already charged up for a Knuckle Impact if he chooses to.
Yeah, absolutely. And
with the energy in his hand.
Yeah, and so he will be able to just retreat the Lycanroc, bring up the Buzzwole, and KO that Tapu Lele GX. And again, you've got to be thinking that Jimmy's in a really favorable position here, and I kind of see the game going towards him right now.
Well, actually, he even just has the Guzma in his hand.
Oh, so he doesn't even need to retreat. My goodness. So he can just use the Guzma, bring up the Zoroark, and just take 2 prizes. Is that what he ends up? Is that what he's going to end up doing, though?
Remember, he still is kind of afraid of that Mew EX threat. But, oh no, taking out the Zorua. Okay, this is nice.
Yes.
This is nice.
Yeah, this is very nice. So once again, Jimmy, being the high-level player he is, recognizes that he doesn't want to force himself into a position where he has to KO a 2-prize Pokemon just to get 1 prize to win the game. So he actually just brings up the unevolved Zorua, will be able to knock out of a Jet Punch and put 30 on something else and set it up for the follow-up knockout to take his last 2 prizes and win.
And remember, he still has that energy attachment for turn, but holding off just because maybe it'll seem like less of a threat. Like, oh, he doesn't have an energy, so maybe I'm playing a little looser. Yeah,
exactly. And so Jimmy can then come in with the surprise next turn, and yeah, just going for the 30 damage onto the Tapu Lele GX, knowing that everything else shouldn't be, in theory, too bad to knock out. Although, if for Lucario it does end up coming out, evolving that damage Riola, or just end up coming in to evolve, then that could maybe be a bit tricky for him.
Well, unless Pedro has an N to play this turn, just that simple strong energy on that Buzzwole with the Choice Band is enough to knock out a fresh Lucario GX.
Wow, okay, so yeah, I guess that it's not so consequential after all. Oh, there's a Parallel City though. What's the Jimmy discard here? This looks like it's going to be the Mew, and does he really...
It would have to be the second Octillery, I would think, just because Lycanroc does actually take knockouts on Zoroarks.
It does, but I mean, given that he has the Buzzwole on the bench, which will be able to do the same, and that the Lycanroc is damaged, I think the Lycanroc is kind of just spent here. The Buzzwole will always be able to do more with those energies than anything that the Lycanroc can do. So yeah, he actually just does discard the Lycanroc.
All right, but this does make him a little susceptible to Mew EX. And there's the Field Blower taking off the Choice Band, meaning Jimmy will need to dig a little bit to try to knock out a Lucario GX if it comes out this turn.
Yeah, he will. And that's a strong energy on the reactive for Pedro as well. So if he's able to find a Lucario, he actually will have the knockout on this Buzzwole. And that will be the first 2 prizes he's been able to take all game.
And looking at Jimmy's hand there, he actually does have the Choice Band as well. So really just having everything. But here is the Tapu Lele Wonder Tag. You would have to think this would get N.
Yeah, without a doubt. He was able to get that off the Rescue Stretcher, actually. So with able to get the Tapu Lele back that was discarded earlier, and using Wonder Tag. But him benching that now means that, again, the Mew isn't something to be concerned about. So these Buzzwoles are completely safe from being hit for weakness at this point.
Yeah, that is true. And Jimmy really only drawing 2 cards, but with 2 Octillery in play, that's probably the best case scenario against late game end.
Yeah. It's not even a late game end from his opponent; it's a late game end from himself. Yeah. But it doesn't. But like I said, it doesn't even matter because he can just refill his hand again.
And he even has a Cynthia and a Fighting Energy in his hand as well. There's the trade: double Evo Soda and the Lucario in Pedro's hand.
Yeah. Also, I just realized I said it's late game end from himself, but absolutely wasn't. Pedro's the one who just played it. It's still that's.
All right, there is the Aura Strike, dealing 100 and a lot of damage. 170 damage thanks to that Choice Band and the Strong Energy.
Yeah, so he was able to find the Lucario and pick up the knockout. So now it's just going to be a matter of what Jimmy's able to find. As we already mentioned, he has access to Octillery, so this N isn't really going to hurt him that much. But I mean, he could still whiff in theory. It's unlikely, but I think he's trying to make a decision as to whether he brings up the Octillery and just sort of assumes that he'll see the Guzma, or whether it makes more sense to bring up the Buzzwole, which looks like that's what he's decided.
Yeah, and drawing that Max Elixir, a card that you can't even play right now, I think.
No, indeed you can't. There are no basic Pokemon on Jimmy's bench, and of course Max Elixir only works on basic Pokemon.
Oh, but the Sudowoodo here.
Ooh.
With its Watch and Learn attack, being able to kind of just navigate through some of these matchups and taking some surprise knockouts, and wow, 3 Choice Bands in that Max Elixir. But he does hit the basic fighting.
Yeah, he does. And I think he's more doing this just to thin out his deck, because in order for him to win the game, he needs to hit a choice band and a strong energy. Attaching both of those would mean that Knuckle Impact would do 210, and that would be enough for the knockout. So doing this, he gets the basic energy out of his deck, and then he can just Sycamore, or after do Abyssal Hand even, and then Sycamore, and probably hit what he needs to win.
And unfortunately, the second Abyssal Hand drew a double copy of Sycamore and a Lycanroc. And we knew he had choice bands in the deck with those 3 in the Max Elixir, but I don't think the Sycamore got him one.
No, he got the strong energy, but not the choice band. That is an unbelievable miss. Wow. And he's already spent all of his Abyssal Hands as well, so he can't even dig any further.
And I think Watch and Learn copying Lucario GX's Aura Strike doesn't do the full 120, even though it came into play this turn.
Yeah, because it has to be specifically evolved this turn. So, and benching.
That's quite a weird interaction.
Yeah, that is quite a weird interaction, but it does mean that the Sudowoodo is sadly not an option. So, yeah, Jimmy with the miss there. And I mean, the one saving grace for him is that this Buzzwole is very unlikely to be able to be knocked out. All he needs to do is pass and not do damage to the Lucario, so that Cantankerous Beatdown isn't a threat. And then next turn, he can just attach the energy and hopefully the choice band, and just take the win that way. Unless, okay,
right.
Well,
I think we'll see a Watch and Learn for 30 damage here.
So this also works nicely because that is the equivalent of the first damage that the choice band would make. So then next turn he can just follow up with a Knuckle Impact and win anyway.
Oh yeah, that is true. All right, let's see. Pedro has to take 4 prizes compared to Jimmy's 2, but he's finally starting to get going a little bit here.
Yeah, he is, and but it might just be a case of too little, too late. We do see there an Ultra Ball discarding a Supporter and an Evo Soda, but nothing he finds here will be able to really give him the tempo he needs in order to make a comeback. He would have to end this turn and hope that Jimmy misses the energy, but if he isn't able to access end, then this game is basically over.
There's 1 in his deck, and I think the 2 copies of Puzzle Time as well, so those are his outs here.
And he only has 1 trade to see them as well.
Yeah.
It's going to be rough. Can he find it? Just going to decide what he wants to discard here off this trade. It's going to be I was going to say it's be a big decision, but what's going to be bigger is what he actually ends up seeing off these 2 cards. There's the trade. What's he get? A Strong Energy and a Parallel City?
No, a Parallel City and a Professor Kukui.
Ah, okay. So, yeah, no, not going to be enough, unfortunately. He does have a Guzma, though.
So, depending on how many Floatstones Jimmy's actually gone through this game, which was quite a few, he has that one on the Buzzwole, this Guzma could buy him a little bit of time.
Yeah, this might be the way out for him. And so, obviously, he's going to be bringing up one of the Octilleries. No? Does he have a Field Blower, maybe?
All right, it depends what he brings up.
So
everything is just so in danger of being knocked out because Knuckle Impact does so much damage.
Yeah, and he's actually just bringing up a Riolu. Okay, so there goes a Strong Energy on that.
Hey, Strong Energy Riolu, you can jab for 30 damage.
Yeah, it's not too bad. And that's the choice band, a little bit late.
1 card off.
But, yeah, that's wow. So at this point, really, Jimmy just needs to find a Guzma if he has any left.
Yeah, unfortunately, he has that Ultra Ball in hand, but with Parallel City limiting his bench, Tapu Lele is not an option.
No, so he's going to have to be forced to instead try to Ultra Ball some cards away, maybe attach the energy, and then do some Abyssal Hands instead to try and find that last Guzma. He's just checking his discard pile to make sure he has any more available to him.
I actually think the one Tapu Lele he plays is in the discard as well.
So yeah, that's not even an out.
So he'll have to rely on these 2 Octilleries.
And he's just looked through his deck of Brooklet Hill just to make sure that this is worth going for.
Well, I think he Ultra Balled.
No, there's no Brooklet Hill in play. What am I saying? Yeah. So there's the Ultra Ball that he had. Yeah, no, we're going to see the Strong Energy attachment, and then I imagine a Choice Band to get attached somewhere as well, just so he gets to draw more. Indeed, it does. And then here's the first Abyssal Hand.
Does he draw the Guzma? No.
No, he doesn't. But there is the Brooklet Hill.
All right, Brooklet Hill allows him to free up his hand a little bit, playing both of those basics if he wants to.
Yep.
And we look at his deck, 2 Guzma and 4 cards that do not matter.
So this is going to be very, very big here. I don't think that he can thin out enough cards from his hand to guarantee it, but he can play out enough so that he can almost guarantee it, if that makes sense. He can make it very, very, very likely.
I think the one way he doesn't get it is the bottom 2 cards are Guzma.
That would be very unfortunate if that was the case.
Yeah, because there's 4 random cards.
Yeah.
All right, this is it, folks.
Does he get it? But he got it.
Yeah, retreat and then Guzma.
Yeah,
all right.
There it is. So Jimmy Pendarvis will take game 1 after a potentially dodgy end there. But I think that Jimmy pretty much had that towards the end.
Yeah, well, looking at turn 1 from Pedro, he was just starting on the back foot, straight out of the gates.
Yeah, it's really hard to recover from a start, which is just 3 double colorless energy and a choice band in hand, and then attach and pass.
Yeah. And also being able to spread out his energy throughout the first few turns, and just being able to take knockouts and not really having Mew even be a factor in that game.
No, indeed, because Jimmy was able to just put so much aggression out that Pedro wasn't able to use that Mew to counterattack effectively. He always had to bench other things instead, and so he wasn't able to make the most of that threat that he could otherwise pose.
Oh, right, and I think we always say this before, but Mew EX is the crucial part of this matchup, and Pedro really needs to utilize it better game 2.
Yeah, I think if he gets a better setup this game, then with Verena from his side, he'll be able to not have to focus as hard on just trying to get set up, and then actually make use of that Mew and maybe get a big knockout and a Buzzwole with it. And that's how he needs to play this if he wants to be able to make this comeback and win game 2 and 3.
Remember, there's so much these players are playing for, and I kind of let the nerves get to me. But these players have been here. They've done this plenty of times before, and it's been a pleasure to watch so far.
Yeah. Both of these players are no strangers to being streamed. They've both been streamed multiple times in Europe for Pedro's case, and in the US for Jimmy's case. So they're not going to be feeling it. They know what is expected of both of them, and they know they have, I don't know about nothing to prove to anyone, but they know where they sit.
Looks like a mulligan from Jimmy here. Not starting off with those 3 important basics that he did in 1.
Yeah, no, that was a really, really insane start from Jimmy's side. But let's see what he gets from here. Would he be another mulligan this time? No, it looks like this time he does have a basic. Oh, yeah, it is another mulligan.
So Pedro's starting off so far with 2 extra cards this game.
And he will be going first as well, given that he lost. So those 2 cards there's no chance of those getting end away, and those will be 2 definite extra resources he'll have to work with.
And resources that he really needs to find Zoroas with.
Yeah, yes, which I'm sure he would love to do if he's able to do so, and not make a repeat of game 1.
You would think, just looking at the game from outside perspective, well, Zoroark and Zoro's weak to fighting. I should just not bench him in this matchup because they're just going to get knocked out so easily. But it's such a crucial part of your deck.
Yeah, you can't not bench them. Yeah, maybe you have to be a little bit more careful with them, but at the same time, if you're not doing trades, you're not drawing cards, and you're not going to be able to find the resources which you need to be able to knock out anything that your opponent has. So you have to just accept that you have that weakness and just play around it the best you can.
Yeah, well, it's looking like Pedro has that turn 1 Bridget. Just the great supporter card here, getting those 3 Zoroas on the bench. He's like, all right, I'm not going to let what happened game 1 happen game 2.
Yeah, and he's making sure that it definitely won't be the case as he goes to that Bridget and gets those 3 Zoroas. So, and the rest of his hand doesn't look too bad either. He's got another Riolu to bench. He's got a double colorless energy ready to go and a parallel city. So,
I'm liking the look of his hand.
Yeah, I'm liking the look of his hand. I'm liking the look of his field a lot more as well, especially in comparison to last time. Completely polar opposite start.
And looking at Jimmy's hand, it's not really faring as well as it could be.
No, a lot of Pokemon, actually. We see a Tapu Lele. I believe I saw another Buzzwole too, but not really much of any energy or anything like that, or no Max Elixirs either. Those are in his deck.
Using that Wonder Tag from Tapu Lele straight away. Looking for maybe a Cynthia. just because you don't want to discard those Lycanroc and Octillery in your hand.
Yeah, absolutely not. There's a lot of really way too important Pokemon that some of them will get benched and some of them will go back in, and that is the Cynthia played there. Interesting how I opted not to bench the Regirock just yet.
Yeah, Regirock didn't really see much play at all. Game 1 kind of didn't really need it.
No.
And I think we saw from Game 1 his focus on Octillery, because Pedro was like, yeah, I need NU to come back, but those Octillery kept drawing you everything you needed.
Yeah, and that was a really important thing that was able to make Jimmy really capitalize on Pedro's slow start. It's just that Jimmy was drawing all the cards. And normally it's the Zoroark that does that, but if you've got 2 Octillery out, you can do that too.
Right, it does look like a pretty good 6 cards from Cynthia here. Energy with the Max Elixir as well, and a Mew to combat an early Mew EX if possible.
Yeah, that's going to be just then a Jet Punch with 30 onto the Riolu and 30 onto the bench Zoro, which gets evolved straight away into a Zoroark. So yeah, already this is going to be a really, really much stronger start from Pedro's side, and he will now be looking for a Lucario, I imagine, and a fighting energy of some description, just so that or strong energy rather, since that's the only fighting energy he plays. And then that way he'll be able to do an Aura Strike and start putting some hurt into this Buzzwole GX.
And of course, remember, he has access to that trade ability, and with more Zoroarks comes more trades.
Indeed it does, although there's none in his hand just yet. So there's one trade. Discarding, and there's an Ultra Ball, so he'll be able to use that to find another Zoroark, and he actually has a second Ultra Ball in his hand, but he's opting to maybe discard it.
Well, so this hand's kind of awkward, because whenever you play a supporter, draw some cards, and you draw basically all supporters, it's one of those things where it's like, all right, well, I can discard a few of these, but I'm going to need these later on in the game.
Yeah, so it's a matter of finding the right sort of compromise between not wanting to discard more things which let you find more Pokemon, but at the same time not wanting to discard too many ends and such, to the point where your opponent has a really insanely big hand, and they look at your discard pile and they see that there's 4N in there, and they think, oh, I don't have to worry about losing this hand, I get to keep this the rest of the game.
Yeah. And he does opt for that second Zoroark, but he does need basically the perfect 2 cards if he wants to attack this turn.
He draws 2 more Ultra Balls, so if he ends up playing this, he would have used all 4 of his Ultra Balls in one turn. So instead he just goes
We see the Detect on stream with the heads. This similar to the agility attacks that we've seen in the past. It is completely just protected next turn.
Wow, so this forces Pedro to have to find a Guzma then in order to get rid of this Detect effect from being in play. And of course, Jimmy's still under the effect of that Parallel City too, so he can't even bench any more Pokemon.
Yeah, and he really needs Remoraid's out.
Yeah, he absolutely does.
Wow, that hand too was not looking that good, but there's the N.
There indeed is the N. And thinking back a couple of turns, I imagine that the Parallel City might be the reason why he opted not to bench Regirock, because if he did, that would have been his entire all of the bench slots taken up, and he would much rather have something else, like that Mew, for example.
All right, drawing the full 6 for both players. Early turns here where they detect heads, man.
Yeah, detect heads. I mean, that's the reason why you have to sometimes a lot of Brooklet
here
Hill.
The important card, Brooklet Hill, bumping the Parallel City so Jimmy can actually play more Pokemon, but it also gets cards he needs: Rockruffs, Remoraids.
Everything, yeah, that's really important for him, so that he will now be able to, later on evolve that Rockruff and use that Bloodthirsty Eyes, maybe bring up a Zoroark and KO it with Knuckle Impact. But here's a really important thing for, if your name's Jimmy Pendarvis. The getting around Detect means, and the fact that he's not been able to play a Guzma yet, means that he's kind of forced to either just Jet Punch. He can do a damage to the bench, but the Riolu's safe.
Yeah, and we actually see double Puzzle of Time in Pedro's hand again off the end. Jimmy played kind of reminiscent from Game 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, oh wow, that's that. That's what I was looking at his discard pile. He does have a double Colors Energy in his hand, and he has a Guzma of his own as well, and it looks to be Professor Kukui, but is he actually just going to go for? He's going to go for a trade first, and he finds 2 Tapu Leles.
Well, he has access to any supporter he wants now. But again, he's still looking for Lucario, still looking for strong energy.
Now, interestingly, Pedro does play one copy of Mallow, but he didn't opt to actually go for it, because something he could have done maybe is use Tapu Lele one attack for Mallow and then actually guarantee the cards he needs off of that. But he said just opted to do the second trade, and he still hasn't really seen anything else. Although he's playing the two puzzles at a time together now.
All right. Ultra Ball probably getting the Lucario or just another Zoroark, since he doesn't have that strong energy.
Yeah,
could we see another Detect?
Yeah, I mean, possibly. It's interesting. He actually gets back the Professor Kukui he just discarded with that double puzzle at a time. So there's the Ultra Ball. You're going to discard something. It looks like it's going to be Tapu Koko.
Which is a very good discard, just because it's almost useless in this matchup.
Yeah. You don't really want to be spreading damage around in this matchup where you're better off.
Oh, but here's that Ultra Ball for the Mew. We know he has the double colorless in hand, so a simple bench, attach, and a retreat will be able to take the knockout with Riotous Beating.
Oh, that is a very, very big find then. So very important that he was able to get a hold of that. There it is. Just Mew with the double colorless. He will be able to. Now he's not going to necessarily.
And the Guzma.
Okay.
Taking out the 2 energy Buzzwole on the bench. Really putting Jimmy on the back foot here.
So this is the complete polar opposite of Game 1. Just look at how strong of a field and a setup that Jimmy has.
But see, Jimmy...
or rather, that Pedro has.
Jimmy's been planning for this. He held the Choice Band in his hand and has the Choice Band energy, and he will be able to Gem Punch and take a knockout here.
And that's why you play Mew. You're also, with the Choice Band, able to hit the Jet Punch weakness, knock out the Mew, and actually put 30 on something else as well. You can actually get a double knockout here, because you knock out the Zora too.
Wow, that's very important.
Because that means that now he's going to be able to stop Pedro from being able to do a third trade next turn. Now after this end, it looks like Jimmy hasn't seen too much else. He has got a Lycanroc, but he also is going to use that this turn because he wants to KO this Mew. This Mew is the biggest threat to him right now. He's got the KO ready on board, so he's going to likely hold that. There is also a Brook Lale being used, and he will grab himself the Remoraid, so he's going to be able to start maybe building up his bench so he can draw more cards each turn.
Well, it gives him kind of an assurance to these ends because Pedro has his 2 Zoroarks, and it's not that bad for him. Right now, Jimmy's kind of like, well, if he ends me to 4, if I don't draw anything, I'm going to be in a world of trouble.
Yeah, and he doesn't want to be in that situation. So just, like I said, providing that assurance
3,
there.
Actually,
yeah, exactly. So providing himself that assurance there. He doesn't quite have the auxiliary yet, but if he draws into it, then he will be end-proof as he just takes the knockout, and now it's back to Pedro. How does he respond to this Mew?
So Mew, the one drawback about it, that 50 HP.
Yes.
It basically gets knocked out by almost anything.
And as long as Pedro is able to find either a Lucario or, well, a Lucario and a strong energy or another double colorless, that Mew is gone. Yeah,
exactly. And unfortunately for Jimmy, he does get end to 3. He even had the Ultra Ball from the prizes for that auxiliary.
Oh, but was fortunately unable to bench the Remoraid quickly enough to actually make the most of that. So yeah, Jimmy's going to really hope to himself that he finds an Ultra Ball and artillery now. But
Sycamore has the last card off that N.
That will do. And it looks like Pedro actually got the double colorless as well, so he definitely will be able to pick up the knockout on this Mew here. He's got another Riolu, which he could bench, but whether he does or not is another matter. And he's actually decided to trade a Zoroark he drew away, finding himself a Bridget and a Guzma. Discards that Bridget too, and has an Ultra Ball.
And another Zoroark.
Does he just Ultra Ball for another Zora here? It looks like he's going to.
Or even just the Tapu Lele for a supporter for next turn.
Yeah, possibly. If he's worried that his 2 trades next turn won't be enough.
Oh, here, this is smart. Brooklet Hill.
There you go.
Make sure you have that Tapu Lele in your deck because you've been discarding a lot of cards.
Yeah, and so smartly able to check there that he actually has it, and he does. So there he's able to get the Tapu Lele, and he's going to use Wonder Tag and probably just get himself, like a Cynthia or whatever draw supporter he even has left.
So I think it's crazy because Pedro has all 4 strong energy in his deck, but throughout this whole game, he's not been able to get a single 1 in his hand.
Wow, that is very strange. He's He did pull one off the prizes as well, so he had one in his hand then, but then of course it got shuffled away.
It's really unfortunate because that's half your deck right there is Lucario GX. And when you're not able to utilize your full deck to its full potential, it's not looking good.
No, not at all.
Here, kind of the safer play than trying to attack with the Zoroark GX, using that Tapu Lele Energy Drive to take out the Mew.
Yeah, it still is enough because exactly like you said, that Mew only has 50 HP, so Energy Drive for 60 will be enough to do it. So now Jimmy has to think to himself how he wants to best respond. Now, he does have that Lycanroc I mentioned earlier. He also has access to Bricklet Hill, so you'll be able to use that to maybe bench another Remoraid or another Buzzwole.
Well, so he has that Regirock in hand as well, and with that 30 damage on the Riolu on the bench with that double colorless and the Choice Band, seems like a pretty juicy target.
Yeah, it does seem like a pretty juicy target, and that would again be a really good pickup for Jimmy because he would then be down to an even prize number again, so he just had to focus on carrying one Zoroark to win the game.
And opts for a Rockruff instead of a Buzzwole GX.
Or not.
I think Pedro's kind of contesting, like, you chose Buzzwole.
Yeah. And...
All right, but it looks like it is Rockruff is the chosen Pokemon. So again, Bloodthirsty Eyes, just an insane ability to manipulate your opponent's bench. And I think, yeah, we see it there. Bringing up that Riolu, and Jimmy drawing a bunch of energy, so this Max Elixir might not seem as good as it could be.
No. Although equally, there's nothing that great to attach to with the Max Elixir right now, apart from maybe the Rockruff, but even then, he's already committed a base Genji now to the bench Lycanroc, so probably best to hold off on that Max Elixir for now anyway. Especially given, like you said, how many energy he drew.
Yeah.
But after that, we will, I imagine, just see...
I think he's Ultra Balling right here.
Oh, okay.
And this Ultra Ball's nice because it gets the Octillery, finally.
Yes, finally, there we go. So now even if he gets N to a low hand size, which is likely to happen next turn from Pedro's side, if he's able to see the N off a trade, then he still has that assurance like you mentioned earlier.
Well, I think Pedro actually used his last N last turn, so he only has access to that double puzzle he has left.
I thought I saw one more in his deck.
I think he Wonder Tagged. Or no, he Wonder Tagged for the Kukui.
Yes, he did. Exactly. So he actually does have... He only has one N left.
All right, there is the Jet Punch knockout on that Riolu. And one thing we haven't even talked about is the time left in the round. A little over 8 minutes left.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So even if Pedro does end up winning this game, then that kind of means it will likely be a tie in the match. So, yeah, Jimmy's going to want to make sure that he actually closes this out if he wants to make sure that a win actually happens for him.
All right, well, we finally see Pedro drawing a strong energy on his turn. So, Evo Soda comes down. Lucario GX finally hits the board for game 2.
Yes, it does. So, and given that it was evolved up per that turn, he will now be able to, of course, use that Aura Strike attack and do 120 damage, or will it be 140 with the strong energy? Won't be enough to carry the Buzzwole, but still a decent amount of damage to do.
Yeah, so we're looking through. He does have that one N. He has the Mallow. Brooklet Hill really proving useful for us.
Yes, yeah, actually it really does, so we can actually see the contents of what's going on. I'm a little bit worried about Pedro's position here, though, given that he has 3 prizes left to take. Jimmy only has 2. And actually, something really important to mention, Jimmy hasn't even used his GX attack yet.
You're right.
He is only 1 Lycanroc GX plus 1 energy attack away from announcing Dangerous Rogue on a Zoroark and winning. Oh dear.
And that's where benching that second Rockruff really comes in handy, because it's like, all right, Bloodthirsty Eyes, take the knockout.
Yeah, there's a Parallel City, but yeah, the Lele's obviously going to go straight away, and it's going to have to be the Regirock. Everything else is too important.
Regirock did its job.
It did.
All right, it did its job. It can rest for a little bit.
Yeah, there's the Kukui drawing actually a double colors and a Zoro, so that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, and one thing Pedro has to worry about is if he benches another Pokemon, that Lucario is also in danger of getting knocked out by Dangerous Rogue.
Oh, yeah, that's such an unfortunate catch-22 for him. So I want to bench Zora, but I also just can't, because then, yeah, I'm left far too open. Because right now, this Dangerous Rogue is doing 150 damage.
And he's eyeing that Mew.
Oh.
So he will be able to take a knockout, but this Mew's just going to get knocked out right back by this Lycanroc.
Yeah, Dangerous Rogue will get the job done. Yeah, and there it is.
Lycanroc, strong energy, Dangerous Rogue GX taking the knockout and the game for Jimmy Pendarvis. First player for the day.
Yeah, in the end, and he takes the win. So congratulations, Jimmy Pendarvis. He'll be moving on to, I believe, 8-0